thank you everybody to stay awakened yet. Now, still happy faces. This is good. This is one of our main expectation, having this fun event. And sometimes to bring with Pierre something different. I have the great honor and pleasure to introduce you my friend Albrecht.
Hello.
We are working in real life together. He should be my boss some kind. And yeah, okay, indeed.
We are collaborating, so we are working together. It's probably a better expression of it.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll hand over to you. You're a great guy.
Thank you.
Enjoy,
welcome,
guys.
Welcome, Pierre. My name is Albrecht Schuppert. I'm working for SAP SE, and in particular at SAP, I'm working for the corporate IT department, if you will. It's a department with a size of approximately 1,500 people. And in this department, in this area, we started recently our Agile Transformation. Other parts of SAP have done that earlier. We started now, and I want to give you some insight on why we did it and also how we did it. So first, before going into the why and the how, I want to reflect a little on where we are, and I think this is not specific to SAP as such. It's, I think, valid for everyone. And if you imagine, let's say, the history of computer industry, and remember that Thomas Watson, someone in 1943 said, there's maybe a world market of 5 computers, or later on, Ken Olsen, founder of Digital Equipment Corporation, who was at that time, 1977, one of the biggest computer companies, he said that he has no belief that anyone would need a computer at home. And if you think where we are today, here are simply some brands on it. At the end, it is so that today more or less everyone has many computers at home, and I tried to figure out how many central processing units were shipped by Intel last year, and there is no official number somehow published, but smart people tried to calculate the number of shipped items through, let's say, average price or so. They came only for 2015 to a number of 25 million server CPUs that were sold. So that means computers are all around us, and we are totally used to it, and there is no barrier to use it and to interact with them. When it comes to the applications which are, or the brands that are mentioned here, then we can say there is some consequence of it. They have changed our life already. And this changed our life means we have today certain expectations in terms of how we access information, how fast it is, how easy it is to consume, how information gets presented. So I think if you reflect on these terms, you have many examples, and you will figure out that you have own expectations by that, which are very common and that will influence us. And pretty related to it is finally are the industry trends. So of course there is technology that helps us, and they are floating around terms like mobile first, which means applications we are used from former times, they will completely be changed because they need to be task oriented so that they can be used on a mobile device, just to make an example. Industry 4.0, it's about interoperability of systems. And there are furthermore topics, of course. Cloud plays on the left upper quadrant of this slide. Cloud makes a big topic, or is it a big topic for us, which means there is also a business model reinvention that takes place all over the place, and all companies are impacted by that. And that's not only limited to, let's say, technology companies like SAP. It's in every industry it's valid. So this is our environment we are working on, and reflecting on this environment, SAP has recently renewed our corporate strategy. And I think it's an interesting point to see how such environment also gets reflected in corporate strategy. So our strategy is to be the most innovative cloud company powered by SAP HANA. SAP HANA is this speed of light database. You have heard from that probably. And what does this involve? And I want to go quickly through that. It involves, first of all, that we do something on our products. We call it digital framework. We establish a growth plan, which means we want to serve here win where we play today, which means on our on-premise business we want to stay strong as we are today. But invest for the future means also that we do at the same degree as we lead this on-premise ERP system space, we want to lead the cloud system space. And the other very important quadrant or the very important pillar of this strategy is how we run. That means how we operate our company and also how we interact with our customers. And that leads me to a next point. Because underlying to this strategy, there is a model how we envision a digital enterprise. So, and this means, first of all, there is a so-called digital core system which contains all the security features that are required to interact with cloud applications. And in this SAP portfolio there exist many cloud applications, let's say in the supplier network space, Fieldglass, Ariba, Concur for travel management, Ariba for general procurement solutions. Then SAP Hybris on the customer experience space, which means e-commerce, for example, marketing, big data, HANA Cloud Platform, workforce engagement. So that's the technology portion of it. But when we talk workplace, we want to also to tackle or this corporate digital enterprise model has also to do with, let's say, accessing and using the digital core by mobile device, mobilize, information sharing, collaboration platform, search, inform, and consume. And at the end, this digital enterprise is our, let's say, vision, corporate vision of new enterprises. And what we do in IT, in corporate IT, is basically implementing this on our own, because one of our major sayings is we say we want to drink our own champagne. So we want to do that, what we communicate to our customers and tell our customers, we want to do that also internally. That brings me now to, let's say, our portfolio of IT projects we want to run in our corporate IT department. And this is a pretty huge transformation initiative we run. First of all, we want to implement here the digital core containing out of sales and distribution system, revenue accounting, finance, etc. This is basically a re-implementation of our 20 years old ERP system. This is one task we are doing. In terms of customer experience, we have to do topics around that our information and our transactions, our systems can easily be accessed. And in the HR environment, we are implementing a Concur travel management system, Ariba cloud system for procurement, and so on. So there are many activities that are going on. In total, they are called out by our management 10 major initiatives, which in their size, there are several thousand man hours or man days to implement. That's our challenge we are in. So and if you think, let's say, one topic, re-implementing an ERP system, you can imagine how big these tasks are. And these are basically motivations for the why, for the agile transition. We say one dimension to it, because it's a dimension that comes out of our corporate strategy that invents a new enterprise or a new model for an enterprise company, and we want to implement that in the same way as we communicate that to our customers. And definitely, if you look to this stage, we are facing very large implementation activities. And as you all probably know, large implementation activities are quite hard to handle, because if you think, let's say, the old school waterfall approach, then I think by one of the speakers it was mentioned already today, then once you are ready with your implementation, you will figure out that your implementation is already outdated because business has changed in the meantime. So we need to find a way to manage or to react better to the business demand, and also the other one that relates to it from the strategic perspective. No one has today the patience to wait, let's say, 3 years, 5 years until an ERP system is implemented. So there is no way. And the other point, I made that already, in digital age, we are in the middle of, or we are in, there is only one constant, that is change. So nothing stays or will last over a long time period. So this is the motivation where we say the only way to cope with it is basically doing agile transformation, so that we learn and improve in managing our tasks and our initiatives in smaller iterations, so that we can be successful. So that's somehow a motivation from a strategic perspective. At the same time, obviously, there's also a bottom-up perspective to it. Project managers, they often say during the development cycle of a project, they get disconnected from business, because they are so busy with the implementation activities and matching the projects that they lose track with the interaction with the business, which is business is in this case our customer, the line of business of SAP. So that's some complaint that's there. And then another one is that this way of dealing with requirements somehow makes it pretty hard for projects in the IT department to identify the business value. And we want to create impact by that what we are implementing, and we want to create business value. And in the traditional way, it is quite hard to understand. Of course, we want to manage our implementation activities by this divide and conquer approach. As mentioned earlier, that's the only way to survive. And the other one is probably an interesting one, because there was also this breakout session regarding test-driven development. If you do implementation projects in IT, you are often facing at the very end, when it comes to the short time for the deployment of the software, there's the test phase, very known, and very often there is created this acceptance test surprise, I called it like that, because during test phase you will figure out that you have missed features, that you misunderstood the customer, etc., etc. And also this is a strong motivation for working in smaller iterations. So these are basically our whys, why we do it, so that we can cope better with our customers, and also can see results earlier. How do we approach the agile transition? First of all, when talking agile, regardless if you do a Scrum or a Kanban or what kind of agile methodology, you come to the point that it's in the first place a mind shift necessary. So the way how teams need to deal with the change is different compared to the old world, let's say, when doing waterfall implementation projects. We will come to that a moment later, more in detail. Then another point we said is we want to start with our transition and we don't want to make it dependent on too many prerequisites. You could say every, let's say, team member in IT would need to be educated in Agile methodologies, undergoing a certain set of trainings, and then only then they could start to do the projects in Agile methodology. But we avoided that. We simply said we want to do it now as much and as good as possible, simply to get traction and to initiate this mind shift, because if you are not starting the journey, then you will never come to your final destination. Of course, part of this transition or the way how we approach the transition is definitely training. And by that what I've said earlier, I don't want to say we do not training, but we don't want to make us too much dependent on training, and we have involved some coaching activities. And as a framework, we defined somehow a team roadmap to Agile. It's I think a pretty nice name for it, but it has several steps. First of all, when thinking Agile, the point is you need to identify who are the acting persons, because Agile Scrum in this case, which is our default methodology we want to follow, means that the roles need to be supported. You need to know what the development team is, you need to know who the Scrum Master is, you need to know who the product owner is. And this is sometimes not that easy to identify that in such a corporate environment. Of course, then all should have done a certain set of training, and this set of training is basically a Scrum overview, that they get a feeling and an understanding how it should work. And then very important is user story writing for us, because we say, let's assume you would get, let's say, in the way a requirement documentation as it was done in the former times, then this is simply not compatible somehow to the Agile, to the Scrum methodology, because you couldn't be able, you could process it to a certain extent, but it's not the ideal way. So it's only, let's say, in exceptional transition phase situations, makes it sense to stick and not reinvent user stories. So we started with user story writing trainings, and it's a very essential training for us. Then there are trainings related to specific roles. Also in terms of tooling, we are using Jira. People get trained in that. And then also we are starting with setting up the Scrum events. And then once this is done, they are able to sprint. And we accept also, let's say, intermediate states of these trainings simply to start. But this, while we know that this would mean at the end more coaching support. Let's come back to this topic around mind shift. Mind shift is, if you look how IT departments are organized, then you will figure out there is, or this phase model in IT departments, which are also reflected in setup of IT departments. In the IT departments, there's typically this plan, build, run phases in IT projects. And what we want to do by Agile transition is to break up the silos that are created by it, because you simply think the silos build and run, they are pretty separated in old world. And there's always this throw over the fence thing that the run people need to operate that what build has done, and there is always tension in this process. This tension is also coming up from the situation that the interest of the build organization is different compared to the run organization. Run has to operate according to SLAs, while build has to bring in innovations. Of course, we want to bring in the business value into the center of the whole thing, simply to ensure that we are creating with our work impact that gets recognized by the people and our customers, which are corporate employees. And of course, all this basically will improve and lead finally to, let's say, in a long term, to a kind of DevOps or continuous improvement or continuous development approach. But so far we are not right now. First we are starting with the Agile transition. So now I want to talk a bit more about our training efforts we are doing in the space of the Agile transition. Of course, the initial generic Scrum trainings we are doing mainly as e-learnings, because these trainings and this content is basically common sense and it's easy to consume and it's well prepared by companies that provide these. Even in the internet, you will find good places where you can, for example, get such content and input at no cost. So we're leveraging this as e-learning, so that and providing by that the background and providing the scene for further details. Then when we talk about the training efforts we are doing and spending, then we come to conclusion that we do always, let's say, a team-oriented approach. This team-oriented approach, by that I want to say that these teams also consists of business users. So our corporate colleagues working in the business units, they are involved in these trainings and training efforts, simply that because they, for example, a business user, need to be involved in user story writing. If you express as a persona I want as a user story, then obviously this persona has a word to say in that space. And so we are integrating them in our training efforts so that they are able to understand where we are at, and first of all they can then finally create user stories on their own if they want, and that's one effect of it. The other one is that they understand where we are and what our thinking or thought process is. And from this kind of training we have already applied and running several. It's always how-to oriented. First of all, a major one is break down a product vision into product roadmap. And if you think on process improvements and process automation, which is basically what corporate IT departments are delivering to their audience, then it's sometimes quite hard to define a process vision for a certain area. So that it makes sense to train, let's say, the business side of the world with this product vision and product roadmap thing, that they simply know to articulate in the right way. User stories I mentioned already. Then more Scrum team centric is simply to explain and give input on how Scrum events will work. And of course, team norms and team mechanics is an important topic, simply to set up, let's say, the collaboration. And all these, as mentioned, all this training, it's very user group centric. And what we do also is having thorough breakout sessions that they can train the theoretical content. So it's not only the consume things instead it's also, let's say, working and applying the learnings directly. And as we have set up our teams in a way that they always have a common context, let's say a process or an application, then it's a joint learning experience and practicing experience between IT and business persons. So, and now I did talk a lot about our training efforts in relation to Scrum and our challenges with large implementations. Here I want to close and conclude by bringing in some additional topics which are relevant in transitioning a whole organization. What we are actually doing, it's not only the Scrum teams that need to change, it's at the end the whole organization that change. So that means as we are changing the organization, especially in Germany, we have the topic around Workers' Council because we introduced new roles in our IT department, Scrum Master, Product Owner. It's at least in Germany a huge topic, probably in France as well. Then another interesting one is setting up stable teams. You all probably know the ideal world, textbook world of Scrum, co-located teams, stable for project duration. Our reality, as we are a huge company and a multinational, international company, it's different. So we have examples of Scrum teams. Pierre can also make examples of that. I know of a Scrum team that consists of members located in Malaysia, India, Germany, and East Coast US. Okay, that's somehow a kind of relic of former times, but this is at least for the transition period, it's a situation we need to cope with. And that makes it, we learned also today some topics around doing, let's say it was in Ben's session, doing Scrum retrospective sessions for remote located teams. That's exactly our challenge we are in. And in addition, as we have so many nationalities in that space, it is also a topic around mentality that is associated to the nationality of the people. So some nationalities are more open to sharing their experience and others are not, which is a given. So, but we need to cope with it. That's a topic we need to work with. Another one is we need to set up an agile-ready portfolio process. IT organizations, they get budgeted in the beginning of the year. Then throughout the year, when it comes to the implementation efforts, there is this budget topic always visible. And in former times it was easy. Though at the beginning of the year you were able to say you have 5 initiatives and let's say each initiative is worth 2 million and then the project managers did receive their money and then they were able to spend that money. But in the agile world the priorities will change throughout the year. So that means initiatives will probably last not that long, or money or budget needs to be redirected because priorities have changed. And the portfolio process on managing portfolio, all this forecasting and cost controlling need to be adopted. And a last point that comes to my mind in that space is status reporting. So of course we all know project managers, having or somehow managing several projects, we are receiving or we need to give reports on where we are. And as you can imagine, this changes in Agile world. The 100%, which is the reference, does not exactly exist as it was formerly. It needs to be adopted and aligned with our product roadmap. And that has implications, and that implications is not only by creating the reports, it's also about the content of the report, which need to be accepted by management, because for some aspects we cannot give immediate predictions. Let's say, to make an example, for a sprint that is half a year down the road. So we cannot make a statement on that today, because there might change so much. So these are further topics and facets of the agile transition we are working on to finally make it happen, the agile transition of this large organization. And by that I want to close and say thank you for your focus. Not sure if you have questions related to our transition activities.
Yes, okay.
So, sorry, I have a question about, you say something and then I understand something else, so for clarification. You just say that you don't want to put a big effort in training, you just want to start, and then you present a lot of things about trainings and things like that. So what is the most important thing, to start or to train?
The most important thing, in my opinion, is to start while having the training material and all this stuff prepared, so that people can consume that and get somehow supported by this training material, that they they get somehow, first of all, it gets communicated that this material is available, and then the other portion is that coaches will help to bring that to the audience. The point is that we simply didn't want to wait until everyone is educated with every aspect before they were able to take action. So that's it. And our current situation is that people or the project team says that's the right way doing it, so that they can focus on their work and can start to invent all the or that they can do the change, the transition. But I don't want to, maybe one additional note to it, I don't want to create the expression that we start completely out of scratch. That's not true. They have the opportunity and they get also support with this fundamental training. Yeah, we can get as e-learning. That's basically the starting point.
Okay. Thank you for the good presentation. You mentioned about the Agile Transformation. The first step is to initiate the mind shift. I'm wondering if you can share with us more what the challenges in this step you faced and how did you dealt with? Because in my view, this is probably the most important thing, how to motivate people to change from the traditional way of doing things and to doing the Agile way.
Definitely. It has several facets. I think a lot of this mind shift relates to, let's say, communication. Yeah, simply to approach all employees with the ideas. This is one portion of it. But at the end, if you think where the mind shift takes place, that's a single individual. Yeah. And so communication, top-down communication will probably initiate it, but it will not finally help. Maybe it's a starting point, a trigger for it, but it will ultimately not make it. So that means we are somehow approaching the people in the teams and helping them and communicating with them and helping them, but let's say by coaching activities. And another one we do is together with Pierre, we do our famous Agile Wednesday, where people can show up and drop in on Wednesdays on a certain time period to join us and discuss in an informational way all their topics they have, the issues they are facing and some ways to solve it, and we discuss then how to solve it. That's one element of it, and as we are in total facing approximately 70, 80 teams organized in 12 or 13 groups, we are also going into the team meetings of them, which are weekly, simply we are not there every week, but somehow on a regular basis to attend these team meetings and bring up our Agile-related topics. And so far, this helps. Yeah. If it ultimately will manage the mind shift, I think that's a question I probably can answer next year or so. But we have initiated it, and we are confident that it works in this way. And as said, the mind shift itself is a bottom-up activity. Each single individual needs to work on it, rather than this is a order thing top-down. Yeah.
Well, what are some of the benefits that SAP has gotten out of this transformation, both internally for SAP, but also looking at SAP customers? What's the kind of benefits that this will bring to your customers?
Yeah, first of all, the internal benefit we get, at least I have no figures available for it. I typically, to such questions could be answered by figures, saying savings or whatever it is. But that's not or at least I don't have at hand such figures. But the benefit we get is a much closer interaction with our business counterparts, involving them much more in our work we are doing. And even if something is not finished, we are able to show it in Scrum review meetings. And this is well received by the business owners as they can see progress, which they never saw before. They saw before only status reports saying we've done 50%, but what is 50%? Yeah. So that's this portion. What is the benefit for SAP customers? The direct benefit, at least out of our organization, customers, because we are internally facing only. So by our activities, I think SAP customers as such do not have a direct benefit of it. In one aspect, they might get some input. That is because we are talking. When I'm saying we are about to set up this model company, which is part of our corporate strategy and corporate vision. Then we also have regular many meetings with customers who are asking how to implement this model company. Then we are saying, of course, we are using this by this and that approach, and then they have also at least an indirect benefit of that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.